You know those days where you just feel off, completely out of sync. Maybe it's that brain fog after a long flight, or just feeling sluggish after staying up too late. But then there's the opposite, right? Waking up naturally, feeling sharp or fresh. What if I told you there's this hidden clock inside you, running everything from sleep to hormones down to, well, even your cells? Today we're taking a deep dive into exactly that, circadian rhythms. The name itself kind of gives it away. It's from the Latin circa dies, meaning around a day. So we're talking about these roughly 24-hour cycles that basically orchestrate our biology. And here's the really key thing. It's not just any 24-hour cycle. A circadian rhythm is endogenous. It comes from within us. But crucially, it's also entrainable. External cues can reset it, nudge it. It's this amazing balance between our internal time and the world around us.
Exactly. And the whole point of these rhythms really is coordination. They line up almost all our biological processes, so everything happens at the best possible time. It's about maximizing, well, fitness, survival. And it's not just us humans. You find these clocks everywhere. Animals, plants, fungi, even really ancient bacteria. The fact they evolved independently again and again tells you just how fundamental they are. And those external cues you mentioned, light, temperature, even when we eat. Scientists call them Zeitgebers. It's a German word. It means time givers. They're how our inner clock stays synced up.
Okay, so that's our mission for you today. We want to really unpack these internal clocks. By the end of this, you'll get what makes them tick, why they're so critical for health, and maybe most importantly, what goes wrong when they get disrupted. Think of it as your shortcut to understanding a really core part of your own biology. All right, let's unpack this. Maybe start way back, like the earliest hints. Picture this. 4th century BC, Greece. There's this philosopher, Theophrastus. And he's describing a tamarind tree, how its leaves fold up at night and open again at sunrise. He even mentioned the locals saying the plant goes to sleep. It's amazing, right? An ancient observation of this rhythm.
Yeah, those early observations were like planting seeds for later science. Then you jump forward quite a bit to 1729. A French scientist, Jean-Jacques Dortu de Meuron, he did this really elegant experiment with Mimosa pudica plants, you know, the ones that close up when you touch them. He put them in constant darkness. And the fascinating thing was their leaves kept opening and closing on that roughly 24-hour schedule. That was basically the first solid proof of an internal clock, something endogenous, not just reacting to the sun. A huge step.
Totally. A huge leap. And then things really started picking up steam in the 20th century. 1959, you've got Franz Hallberg actually coining the term circadian, giving it a proper name.
Yeah.
But the really big breakthrough was genetic. 1971, Ron Konopka and Seymour Benzer identified the period gene PER in fruit flies Drosophila. And that wasn't just about flies. It was like finding a key to this universal mechanism. It showed this incredibly conserved biological clock working across species. So fundamental, it led to the Nobel Prize in 2017 for Hall, Rosbash, and Young.
Right. And building on all that, scientists set up some clear rules, basically, for what counts as circadian. 3 main criteria. First, it has to have an endogenous free-running period, meaning it keeps going on its own, even in constant conditions, like total darkness. And that internal rhythm, called tau, is approximately 24 hours. Interestingly, for daytime animals like us, tau tends to be slightly longer than 24 hours. For nocturnal animals, it's often slightly shorter, helps them anticipate, you know. Second criterion, it has to be entrainable, resettable. Those Zeitgebers we mentioned, light, meals that can shift the clock.
Like jet lag. That awful feeling is literally your clock being out of sync and then slowly resetting to the new place.
Exactly. That's entrainment in action, or maybe in action for a few days. And the third rule is temperature compensation. This one's subtle but really important. Your body temperature naturally fluctuates a bit, but the circadian clock needs to keep steady time despite that. So it maintains its roughly 24-hour cycle across a range of normal body temperatures. It has to be reliable.
Okay, so it's internal, it's adjustable, and it's stable. But why? Why did these clocks evolve? You said it's not just sleep, which is already huge. What's the bigger picture? Is it about sort of predicting the future, like knowing dawn is coming?
That's a great way to put it. Anticipation is key. It lets organisms get ready for predictable changes, light, dark, food availability, predator activity. It confers a massive selective advantage, being proactive, not just reactive.
Yeah, and the why has a few layers. One early idea was protecting DNA. Like maybe clocks evolved to make sure sensitive stuff like DNA replication happened at night, away from damaging UV rays. Makes sense, right?
Yeah, that seems plausible.
But newer research points towards something potentially even more fundamental, linked to oxygen. It suggests that these clocks co-evolved with certain proteins, redox proteins, especially after the Earth's atmosphere got oxygenated, the Great Oxidation Event. The idea is that rhythms help protect cells from reactive oxygen species, ROS, those are damaging byproducts, often generated by daylight metabolism. So the clock anticipates and defends. It's like an internal scheduled defense system. Wow. From DNA protection to fighting oxygen damage. It's deep stuff.
Yeah.
And it's amazing how simple the core mechanism can be sometimes. You mentioned cyanobacteria.
Oh, absolutely. Their clock is stunningly simple. You can actually rebuild it in a test tube in vitro with just 3 key proteins, Chi, Chi-B, Chi-C, and some energy, ATP, and it just oscillates, keeps time all by itself. It's a beautiful example of biochemical timekeeping.
Just 3 proteins. That's incredible. Okay, so from bacteria, how does this scale up? What about plants?
Plants are fascinating. Their circadian clocks run so much. Leaf movements that sleeping Theophrastus saw, it's called nyctinacity. Also growth patterns when they flower, even when they release fragrances to attract pollinators. It's all time.
How do they sync up? Still light?
Mostly light, yeah. They have special photoreceptors, phytochromes, cryptochromes that sense different colors and intensities of light. There was this great experiment with Arabidopsis, the lab rat of the plant world. They grew best when the lab's light-dark cycle perfectly matched their own internal clock cycle. Shows how important that sync is. There's also this idea of a metabolic dawn, that the sugars they make during photosynthesis actually feed back and help set the clock, linking energy directly to time.
Okay, plants have it figured out. What about extreme environments? Like the Arctic? Constant daylight or darkness must mess things up, right?
It does get tricky. Some animals, like reindeer, seem to mostly lose their strong circadian rhythms during the constant light of summer or the constant dark of winter. They still have daily cycles, but maybe less internally driven.
They just go with the flow.
Sort of, but then you have others, like ground squirrels or porcupines up in Alaska. Even when the sun technically never sets in summer, they seem to maintain their rhythms by tracking the sun's lowest point on the horizon. It's like they find a subtle cue even in the constant light. Pretty clever.
Very clever. Okay, and insects. We mentioned the fruit fly discovery.
Right, Drosophila is the classic model. We understand its molecular clock really well, these interlocking feedback loops of proteins like PER, TIM, chlorocyclic, cicicely. It's quite intricate.
But it's more than just basic function, isn't it?
Oh, much more. Think about monarch butterflies and their incredible migration. They navigate using the sun, but since the sun moves, they need a time-compensated compass. And guess what provides the time?
A circadian clock.
Exactly. A clock located in their antenna, of all places. It's crucial for their navigation. And even things like moth mating, it's highly synchronized. Females release pheromones at specific times, which can actually reset the male moth's clock to trigger mating behavior at night.
Wow, antenna clocks and synchronized mating. Okay, let's bring it back to us. Humans, mammals. Where's our main clock? Our internal orchestrator, you could say.
That would be the suprachiasmatic nucleus, or SCN. It's a tiny cluster of nerve cells deep in the hypothalamus part of the brain.
Okay, the SCN, the master clock.
Pretty much. It gets direct light information from special cells in the retina of our eyes. These cells have a pigment called melanopsin, which is particularly sensitive to blue light.
The blue light connection.
Yeah. And based on that light info, the SCN tells the pineal gland, another small gland in the brain, when to produce melatonin.
The sleep hormone.
Right. Melatonin levels rise in the evening, peak at night, telling our body it's time to wind down and sleep and then drop off in the morning. And here's something really telling about the SCN's power. If you were to carefully remove SCN cells from an animal and keep them alive in a lab dish, continue to oscillate, they maintain their own rhythm, even totally isolated from the body and any external cues. It shows how truly autonomous that master clock is.
That's incredible, just ticking away on their own.
Yeah.
It does make you wonder, though, could there be super subtle cues even in a dish? It's complex. Now, speaking of human rhythms, there was that old idea, wasn't there, that our natural day is actually 25 hours long.
Ah, yes, the bunker studies. Some early isolation experiments did suggest that. It turns out those studies weren't perfectly shielded from light. Even dim artificial light could have influenced the results.
Okay, so flawed data.
Somewhat. A much more rigorous study done at Harvard around 1999 kept people in truly constant, very dim conditions. And that found our average internal clock runs much closer to 24 hours, about 24 hours and 11 minutes on average.
Closer, but still not exactly 24. So we constantly need that little nudge from daylight to stay synced.
Exactly. That's the entrainment part. And there's another interesting layer, is slight differences between sexes. A study in 2010 suggested women tend to have a slightly shorter intrinsic period, around 24 hours and 5 minutes maybe, compared to men, closer to 24 hours and 11 or 12 minutes.
Shorter for women. Does that explain why women often tend to be more morning people?
It might contribute, yeah. The tendency to be a morning lark versus a night owl chronotype is partly genetic, and this period length difference could play a role.
Interesting. So if our clock isn't exactly 24 hours, and there are these individual differences,
Yeah.
how do researchers actually track someone's internal time? What are the markers?
Good question. We use specific biological markers. One key one is dim light melatonin onset, or DLMO. Basically, when melatonin levels start to rise in the evening under dim light conditions, usually around 9 p.m. for the average adult.
Okay, DLMO. What else?
Core body temperature. It follows a very clear rhythm, reaching its lowest point, typically a couple of hours before you naturally wake up, around 4 or 5 a.m. for many.
So your coldest point is just before waking.
Generally, yes. And then there are hormone levels like plasma cortisol, which peaks in the morning to help wake us up. These give us windows into the internal clock's timing. But here's where it gets even more complex. Remember, the SCN is the master clock.
Yeah, the conductor.
Well, Joseph Takahashi's work really highlighted that it's not the only clock. His research showed that essentially almost every cell in the body contains a circadian clock.
Every cell. Seriously.
Almost. These are called peripheral clocks. In your liver, your muscles, your fat cells, even your skin.
Wow. So it's not just the brain sending signals.
The SCN coordinates them, yes, but these peripheral clocks can also respond to other cues, like the clock in your liver is heavily influenced by when you eat. Skin cell clocks can even respond directly to light exposure.
So it's a whole network, a hierarchy of clocks.
Exactly, a complex, interconnected system keeping time throughout the body. It's really quite sophisticated.
Okay, so this intricate system exists. What happens when we mess with it? Which, let's be honest, many of us do. A lot. What are the real-world consequences of disrupting our circadian rhythm?
Yeah, modern life throws a lot of curveballs at our internal clocks. A big one is indoor lighting, especially the blue light from LEDs and screens. It's very effective at suppressing melatonin production, much more than older incandescent lighting.
So late-night screen time is basically telling our brain it's still daytime.
Pretty much. And studies show that chronic nighttime light exposure can be linked to things like depression symptoms. The good news is, restoring a regular light-dark cycle often helps reverse that.
What about lifestyles? Shift work, travel?
Huge disruptors, airline pilots, cabin crew, emergency workers, anyone doing shift work. Their schedules are constantly fighting their internal clocks. This leads to fatigue, reduced performance, and frankly, increased safety risks in many jobs.
And what about things like alcohol or drugs? Do they impact the clock?
Absolutely. There's a strong two-way street there. A disrupted circadian rhythm seems to increase vulnerability to substance abuse and relapse. And conversely, using substances, especially alcohol, definitely messes with your sleep architecture and your clock function. Some research suggests stabilizing rhythms could even be a tool in addiction recovery.
Okay, so light, lifestyle substances. These disruptions aren't trivial. What are the harder health consequences? We mentioned jet lag, that's the obvious short-term one. Feeling groggy, disoriented, your body's time is just wrong for the location.
Right. But the long-term stuff is more concerning. There are clear links to mental health issues. Bipolar disorder, for instance, often involves significant circadian disruption. Also depression, anxiety, and specific sleep disorders like delayed sleep phase disorder, where people are like permanent night owls.
And physical health, heart disease, metabolism.
Definitely. For cardiovascular disease, there was this really stark study with hamsters that had a genetic mutation giving them a faster 22-hour clock. When they were forced onto a standard 24-hour light-dark cycle, they developed serious heart and kidney problems.
Wow. Just from being out of sync.
Exactly. But when they lived on a 22-hour cycle that matched their internal clock, they were perfectly healthy. It powerfully shows the danger of misalignment. We see echoes in humans too. Shift workers tend to have higher levels of inflammatory markers linked to atherosclerosis and higher triglycerides contributing to heart disease risk.
In metabolism, does being out of sync affect weight or diabetes risk?
Yes, strongly. Shift work, irregular eating patterns, they're linked to poorer insulin sensitivity, increased risk of obesity, and type 2 diabetes. Animal studies show that if you make mice eat during their normal sleep time, they gain significantly more weight than mice eating the same amount during their active time. timing really matters for metabolism.
Okay, what about our brains? Cognitive function.
Yeah, there are cognitive effects too. Chronic shift work is associated with more errors on the job, slower reaction times, impaired decision-making. And some research even suggests a link between long-term circadian disruption, especially from shift work starting after age 50, and an increased risk of dementia later in life. It impacts brain health over the long run.
That's quite a list of potential problems. But surely understanding all this is leading to solutions. Is there hope?
Absolutely. This understanding is driving a field called circadian medicine. One major area is chronotherapeutics. It's about timing medical treatments to work with the body's clock.
Like taking certain meds at a specific time of day.
Exactly. For example, some blood pressure medications might be more effective if taken at bedtime, aligning with natural blood pressure rhythms. Certain cancer chemotherapies seem to be more effective and have fewer side effects when timed to match the cell cycle rhythms of tumor cells versus healthy cells.
That makes so much sense.
Yeah.
Using the body's own timing to our advantage.
Right. And researchers are also developing experimental drugs that directly target the molecular clock machinery. Some have shown promise in animal models for reducing damage after a heart attack, for instance. But it's crucial, as we develop these therapies, to remember those sex differences we talked about. Treatments might need to be tailored because men's and women's clocks aren't identical.
That's really important for personalized medicine. And on a simpler level, maybe things we can do ourselves. What about naps? Do they help or hurt?
Good question. Short naps, like 20-30 minutes, generally seem beneficial. Studies suggest brief daytime naps can reduce stress hormones, improve alertness and productivity, usually without significantly disrupting your main nighttime sleep or your overall circadian rhythm. Longer naps, though, especially late in the day, can sometimes interfere.
Okay, so a short power nap gets a thumbs up.
Yeah.
Good to know. Well, we've covered a lot of ground today, from ancient Greeks noticing sleeping plants all the way to the complex molecular clocks ticking away in nearly every cell of our bodies. We've seen how vital these rhythms are for health, for mood, for thinking clearly.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? How much attention do you actually pay to your own internal clock? Are you listening to its signals?
That is the question, isn't it? In this world that's always on, always pushing us to override our natural rhythms with bright screens, late nights, weird schedules, what's one small thing, maybe just one conscious step you could take tomorrow to try and align just a little bit better with your own internal time? And what could the ripple effects of that be on how you feel, how you function, your overall health? Something to think about.
Welcome to The Deep Dive. Today we're tackling something that sounds straight out of science fiction, honestly, but it's becoming a really serious topic: digital immortality.
Yeah, it's not just about backing up your files anymore.
No, not at all. We're talking about potentially creating a version of you that lasts, an interactive you in the digital world.
What's fascinating here is that it goes way beyond just storing memories. Digital immortality, the big idea, is this, well, hypothetical concept of storing, maybe even cloning, a person's mind, their personality.
Yeah, to what? Like a computer program?
Could be. Or an avatar, maybe an AI. The goal is something interactive, something that thinks, reacts, basically acts like the original person, all based on, a huge digital archive of their life.
Okay, so to figure this out, we've really dug into a key source, the Wikipedia entry on digital immortality. It's pretty comprehensive.
It covers a lot of ground.
Right. So our aim today is to pull out the crucial bits. How realistic is this? What are the methods people are actually proposing? What are the, frankly, huge ethical issues? And is it even feasible right now?
It's a journey into the future of what identity even means.
Exactly. Let's get started. Okay, let's really unpack this core vision. You've got this avatar, right? A digital version of someone.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not just a picture. It behaves like them, reacts like them, maybe even thinks like them, all built from their digital history.
And here's where it gets, well, existentially weird. After the person dies, biologically speaking, this digital self could just be a static snapshot, like a perfect recording, or it could keep learning, keep evolving on its own.
Becoming a seed AI, as the source calls it.
Potentially, yes. So it's less a memory and more a possible continuation of sorts.
Wow.
And this idea, it's fundamental for groups like transhumanists, singularitarians, people who believe technology can help us overcome human limits.
Right. They see it as a way to Leave the body behind.
Essentially, yeah. To leave their biological shell, as they put it,
Right.
and maybe live eternally in some kind of digital heaven or paradise. It's a pretty radical vision of life.
And it's not just theory, is it? People are actually investing in this.
Oh, well, definitely.
Like the National Science Foundation giving universities $500,000.
Right. To look into creating convincing digital people using AI, archives, imaging. They explicitly called it a possible first step toward virtual immortality.
A first step. And then there's that 2045 initiative, Dmitry Itskov's project.
Yes. Aiming to clone personalities onto non-biological carriers. Extending existence, maybe even to immortality. These aren't fringe ideas anymore. They're attracting serious funding.
Serious stuff.
And the Digital Immortality Institute even laid out some critical factors needed for this to work.
Like what?
Well, first, guaranteed internet access for these avatars. They need to be online, always. Second, they have to match the user specs perfectly and stay that way.
Okay, authenticity.
Exactly. And third, this is the tricky one. The future digital versions have to be secured before the person is gone.
So you need to build your digital ghost while you're still alive.
Pretty much. It implies a massive amount of ongoing data collection, legal stuff sorted out beforehand.
That sounds like a huge hurdle. But okay, let's say we want to try. How do we actually build this digital self? What are the nuts and bolts here?
Well, the source suggests a two-step process, broadly speaking. First, you've got the huge task of archiving and digitizing a person.
Capturing everything.
As much as possible. Gordon Bell and Jim Gray, back when they were at Microsoft Research, actually claimed that just keeping every conversation someone hears is feasible. Less than a terabyte, they thought.
That's surprisingly little space, isn't it?
The storage isn't the biggest issue anymore. The real challenge, they noted, is speech and text recognition. Turning all that raw sound and text into useful, searchable data.
Right. So it's not just about having the recording, it's about understanding it.
Precisely. And we're not just talking audio. Martine Rothblatt introduced this idea of mind files.
Mind files.
Yeah, basically these huge collections of data from all our digital activity. Photos, social media posts, opinions shared online, emails, everything. She argues these already reflect who we are.
Our digital exhaust, basically.
In a way, yes. Susanna Ash builds on that, defining digital immortality as needing this person-centric repository, a copy of everything you see, hear, say, create.
Wow.
And then integrating that into an AI agent, an avatar, that seems to have your memories, your thoughts, your beliefs.
Yeah.
It presents the illusion of you.
So Richard Grandmore's little equation makes sense then. Semantic analysis plus social internet use plus AI equals immortality.
It's a neat summary. It suggests our everyday online life is already the raw material.
Okay, so we've gathered the data, the mind file. What's step 2? Making it live.
Exactly. That's the mind clone generation and what Rothblatt calls the calibration process. She talks about needing mindware software to read the mind file and generate the mind clone.
Software to make a digital you.
Right. She even suggests maybe needing government approval, like FDA certification, to ensure these clones are, good quality, authentic.
Quality control for digital people. That's something. What about calibration?
That's maybe the most sci-fi part. A period where the biological person and their digital artifact in silicon coexist.
They live side by side.
For a time, yes.
Yeah.
With constant updates, syncing, interaction, the goal is to keep the two minds aligned, make sure the digital one stays a true reflection.
Wow. Talking to your digital twin to keep it up to date, Joshua Hurtado's framework seems relevant here.
Yes, his 4 steps. Gathering data, codifying it, activating the avatar, and then embodiment. How do we interact?
Through talking. Or does the avatar show emotion? Or is it more like a digital monument?
It suggests different levels of interaction, preserving that social bond, potentially.
Okay, this is all fascinatingly complex, but if we can do this, or even get close, the ethical and legal side must be a minefield.
Oh, absolutely. Boston University's magazine pointed out AI is already blurring the lines between the living and the dead. That's just the start.
So what are the big questions?
Well, the fundamental one, as Rothblatt asks, is this digital copy really you? Does it capture your essence, or is it just a very clever puppet, a simulation?
The identity question.
Exactly. And then there's grief. Melody Parker highlighted the split view on AI grief tech. Some see it as comforting, a way to stay connected.
I can see that appeal.
But others, including Rothblatt again, worry you could actually stop people from grieving properly. You get stuck talking to a ghost, essentially, instead of moving on.
That's a really important point, a constant connection that prevents closure. And what about privacy after death.
Huge issue. Vinicius Ferreira Galvão raised critical questions. Who owns your data after you die if you didn't name an heir? It's not like inheriting a house.
No.
And if we can make a perfect digital copy, should it have rights? Like a person.
Should it be treated like a human being? That's
Yeah.
massive.
And if you're into Gamma Notes, we're already using holograms, digital twins, chatbots to mimic the dead. They interact with survivors. Where are the privacy boundaries there? Who consents?
The legal side must be lagging way behind this.
Completely. Bell and Gray made that distinction. One-way immortality, just preserving data for the future.
Like a digital time capsule.
Right. Versus two-way immortality, where you can actually talk to these digital versions. They raise totally different legal problems: intellectual property, consent, the legal status of the avatar. Our laws just aren't ready.
Okay, so huge vision, complex methods, massive ethical tangles. But let's circle back to the core feasibility. Can we actually upload a mind? Is consciousness transferable?
This is the crux of it, isn't it?
Yeah.
And interestingly, even some major transhumanist thinkers like David Pearce are skeptical.
Oh, really? Why?
Well, Pearce argues that while computers are amazing at computation, complex calculations, they can't replicate subjective experience, sentience, the feeling of being conscious.
The qualia, the what it's like aspect.
Precisely. He points to the phenomenal binding problem, how different sensory inputs create a unified subjective experience. He believed consciousness involves these qualitative, non-computational things that current tech, and maybe even future tech, just can't copy.
So you can copy the data, the behavior patterns maybe, but not the actual experience of being.
That's his argument. It throws real doubt on fully transferring a mind to a digital substrate. It forces us to ask, what even is consciousness, really?
That's the fundamental mystery, isn't it? And while science is wrestling with that, fiction has been playing with these ideas for ages.
Oh, absolutely. It's like a testing ground for these concepts.
You think of really dark stuff like, I have no mouth and I must scream, where digital immortality is literal hell.
A terrifying example.
Ah.
Or Cuprica, where digital copies outlive their originals.
And Black Mirror, of course, is almost entirely built around these ideas. San Junipero, uploading consciousness.
With the cookies, those trapped digital minds, yeah.
Or Altered Carbon with the cortical stacks, Upload on Netflix, Cyberpunk 2077 with the digitized personality.
Pantheon, Transcendence, the list goes on.
Yeah, loads of examples.
And these stories aren't just plots. They explore the very ethical questions, the philosophical dilemmas we've been talking about. They're like thought experiments for us.
So what a journey today. We've gone from this sci-fi sounding idea of digital immortality to seeing the real-world research, the proposed methods, the huge ethical knots, and the deep questions about consciousness itself.
It really makes you think about identity, loss, what it means to be human in an increasingly digital age.
Definitely.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, here's something to chew on. If a digital copy of you could live forever, learning, changing, evolving on its own, would that still be you? Or would it become something entirely new, something different? What does all this mean for how we think about life, death, memory going forward? How much of us can even be digitized?
Yeah, how much is code and how much is something else? That's the question, isn't it?
It is.
Well, that is definitely a lot to consider. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into a future that might be closer or maybe weirder than we imagine. We hope it gets you thinking about your own digital footprint, the legacy you're creating online and off. Until next time, keep exploring. Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're jumping into the life of someone whose name, well, it still resonates across a whole continent, Simon Bolivar. Many know him simply as El Libertador, the legendary figure who quite literally redrew the map of South America.
Yeah, freeing 6 nations from colonial rule. It's an incredible legacy.
It really is. And that title, El Libertador, it carries such immense weight. You imagine this man with just an almost unbelievable vision for a united continent.
Definitely.
So our goal here is to go beyond the sort of surface level myth. We want to understand not just his massive achievements, but how his early life shaped him.
Right. What made him a revolutionary?
Exactly. And the surprising alliances he formed, that huge vision he had, and also the the disillusionment that really marked his final years.
It's a complex story.
It is. So you're basically going to get a shortcut to being genuinely well-informed about this huge historical figure. We've gathered our info mainly from a pretty comprehensive Wikipedia article full of detail.
Okay, great source to unpack.
So let's start right at the beginning, his early life.
Let's do it.
Okay, so Simón José Antonio de la Santísima Trinidad Bolivar y Palacios, quite a name, born July 24th, 1783, Caracas, Venezuela.
Right, and into significant privilege. A wealthy Criollo family.
Yeah, Criollo meaning American-born Spaniards. The local elite, basically. He was the youngest of 4.
But that privilege didn't shield him from tragedy.
Not at all. He lost his father to tuberculosis in 1786, then his mother, same disease, 1792.
Wow, orphaned very young.
Yeah, and his upbringing then became, well, a bit unusual for his status, largely raised by an African house slave, Hippolyta.
Someone he really valued later in life, right?
Yeah.
Saw her as a mother and father figure.
Exactly, and apparently he was pretty unruly at first, didn't care much for studies.
Not uncommon.
True. But after trying to, run away from his uncle who had custody, he ended up being tutored by some really impressive Venezuelan intellectuals.
Like Simón Rodriguez.
Yes, him, a student of Rousseau, and Andrés Bello, Francisco de Andujar. They clearly saw something in him.
That combination of, privilege, tragedy, and then this specific kind of intellectual guidance, it's quite a foundation.
It really is.
And like many upper-class men then, he went abroad for education, spent time in Spain, mostly Madrid, around 1800 to 1802.
And got really immersed in Enlightenment thinking.
Absolutely. Reading Hobbes, Spinoza, Montesquieu, and definitely Rousseau. Those ideas about rights, reason, challenging absolute power, they clearly stuck.
You can see how that would plant seeds.
Oh, sure. And it's in Madrid, 1802, that he marries Maria Teresa Rodriguez del Toro y Olesa.
Ah, right. But that ended tragically too, didn't it?
Very much so. They returned to Venezuela, and just 8 months later, she died of yellow fever, 1803.
God, that's awful. He must have been devastated.
Completely. His biographer, Peru de la Croix, said Bolivar swore he'd never remarry.
Wow.
It's often seen as this pivotal moment, like maybe losing that personal anchor freed him up for this larger continental cause.
Channeled that grief, perhaps.
Perhaps. So after her death, he goes on the grand tour of Europe, 1803 to 1805, with his childhood friend and his old tutor, Simón Rodriguez.
And this leads to the moment, right? The oath.
Exactly. August 15th, 1805, on the Mons Sacer in Rome, the hill where ancient Roman commoners protested for rights.
Symbolic place.
Very. And he swears this solemn oath to end Spanish rule in the Americas, a deeply personal vow that really set his path.
You can almost feel the gravity of that moment. So he gets back to Venezuela in 1807.
And doesn't waste time.
No. Starts pushing for independence among the wealthy Criollos, though apparently he found himself way more radical than most of them.
They weren't all ready for that leap yet.
Right. But the real trigger, the thing that kicked it all off, was Napoleon invading Spain, 1807-1808.
Yeah, putting his brother Joseph on the Spanish throne. That weakened Spain's grip massively.
Created that power vacuum. Suddenly, Venezuelan Criollos saw their chance to set up their own local governments.
And Bolivar's military career officially starts in 1810, fighting royalists in the Venezuelan War of Independence.
The fight was on.
It was, but it was incredibly difficult. That first attempt, the First Republic of Venezuela, it had weak support, lots of enemies.
And didn't nature itself play a part?
It did, devastatingly. March 26, 1812. A massive earthquake hits Republican areas, especially Caracas.
Oh, wow.
And many people saw it as, divine punishment for declaring independence. Public support just collapsed.
Unbelievable. A natural disaster tipping the scales.
This is a huge factor. Led to the First Republic falling apart. Bolivar faced the setbacks, like at Puerto Cabello, and ended up in exile again.
First Curacao, then Cartagena in New Granada, modern Colombia.
Right. And it's there, in Cartagena, 1812, that he writes the Cartagena Manifesto.
Analyzing what went wrong.
Exactly. Analyzing the defeat, but also laying out his political vision, arguing for a united front. He learned from failure.
Okay. And this connects to the Admirable campaign.
Yes. In 1813, he launches that campaign.
Yeah.
And during it, he issues the very controversial decree of war to the death,
Which
basically ordering the death of all Spaniards in South America, not actively helping his side.
Yeah.
Brutal stuff.
Yeah, sounds incredibly harsh.
It was, but militarily, perhaps effective for its time. Within 6 months, he was back in Caracas.
And that's when he got the title, El Libertador.
Well, interestingly, He was first called that by the people of Merida in May 1813.
Oh, okay.
But then it was made official by the Caracas Town Council that October, the Liberator.
And it stuck. But even with that title, more setbacks followed, right? Another exile?
Yes, another exile in 1815, first Jamaica. That's where he wrote the really important Jamaica letter, outlining his vision for the Americas.
I've heard of that one. Very influential.
Hugely. Then he went to Haiti, and this was crucial.
The Haitian connection.
He met and befriended the Haitian revolutionary leader, Alexandre Pétion.
Okay.
And here's where it gets really interesting. Pétion gave Bolivar military support, soldiers, supplies.
Which he desperately needed.
Absolutely. But it came with a condition, a big one.
Which was...
Bolivar had to promise to abolish slavery in the lands he liberated.
Wow. So Pétion pushed him on that. That's significant.
It really shows a commitment beyond just political freedom. And Bolivar agreed. When he returned to Venezuela in 1816, he declared the emancipation of slaves.
Did he follow through immediately?
He declared it, and he also annulled that harsh decree of war to the death. This alliance gave the revolution new momentum, new moral standing.
Okay, so with Haitian help, he's back. What happens next?
Daring campaigns. The Andes Crossing in 1819 is just legendary.
Unbelievable feat. Over the mountains with an army.
Over 2,000 soldiers to liberate New Granada. The logistics, the hardship, it's staggering.
And it worked.
It led directly to the decisive victory at the Battle of Boyaca, August 7, 1819, then a triumphant entry into Bogota.
Okay, so New Granada is liberated. What follows from that?
Well, this huge success allows for the creation of the Republic of Colombia, what we call Gran Colombia, December 17, 1819.
Merging Venezuela and New Granada.
And the still Spanish-controlled territory of Quito, which is modern Ecuador.
And Bolivar becomes president, elected president, yes, of this huge new state.
The momentum is really building now.
Absolutely. The liberations keep coming. Venezuela fully secured after the Battle of Carabobo in 1821.
Panama joins too.
Declared independence, joined Colombia in 1821. Then Ecuador, liberated at the Battle of Pichincha in 1822, led by Sucre, his general.
Sucre was key.
Very key. Then Peru, after the Battle of Ayacucho in 1824, also Sucre leading.
And finally, Bolivia.
Created in 1825. Named, of course, in his honor, cementing him as the continent's liberator.
Just an incredible string of victories. But it wasn't all smooth sailing, especially with other leaders.
No. The Guayaquil Conference in 1822 is a fixed example. Bolivar meets José de San Martín, the Argentine general who liberated Chile and parts of Peru.
Two giants of independence, what happened?
They met privately. We don't know exactly what was said, but they produced no agreement on how to proceed, how to govern.
Really? They couldn't find common ground? Apparently not. And this led to San Martin feeling disillusioned. He basically withdrew from public life, went into exile.
Leaving Bolivar as the primary leader of the whole movement.
Pretty much, yeah. It was a turning point. And on a personal level, this is also when his significant relationship with Manuela Sáenz began.
The Ecuadorian Republican.
Yes. She became a really important figure, politically active, and famously saved his life later on.
Let's talk about his actual political ideas. Liberal, Republican.
Fundamentally, yes. Steeped in classical thought and the Enlightenment. He admired Montesquieu. He looked at the United States federal system.
But didn't think it would work in South America.
Correct. He admired its perfection, as he saw it, but felt it was unworkable there. He believed centuries under Spain hadn't prepared the people for that kind of decentralized power.
So what was his vision?
A federation, yes, but with strong central governments in each republic. A constitution may be modeled more on the British system with a strong executive.
Interesting. Not quite the U.S. model.
No. And he was serious about preparing people for democracy eventually. Pushed for free public education, put his old tutor, Simón Rodríguez, in charge of it.
Trying to build the foundations. But even as he's building this grand vision, cracks are starting to appear.
Definitely. His final years were marked by growing disillusionment.
With the republics he created. Why?
Partly his own ideology clashing with reality. His strong centralism didn't sit well with regional leaders who wanted more autonomy. Federalism was gaining ground.
So, political infighting.
Intense political turmoil. He kept getting removed from various offices. It must have been incredibly frustrating, even painful for him.
And dangerous too, right? The assassination attempt?
Yes, September 25, 1828, in Bogota. A serious attempt on his life. Foiled by Manuela Sáenz, who literally stalled the assassins, giving him time to escape out a window.
Incredible bravery. He also clashed with his VP.
Yes, Francisco de Pala Santander. They had major disagreements, became rivals. Bolivar eventually exiled him. The alliances were fraying.
It really makes you think, how does someone go from liberator to dealing with all this internal conflict?
It's a tough question. How do you manage governing after the revolution? How do you hold together this huge, diverse territory when your grand vision starts to crumble?
Did he express this despair?
Very much so. There's a famous quote from 1830 to General Juan José Flores. He said, "All who have served the revolution have plowed the sea."
Wow. Plowed the sea. Meaning it was all for nothing.
Reflects that deep sense of futility, yeah.
Yeah.
That his work creating Grand Columbia was ultimately in vain as it was breaking apart.
So what happened then?
He resigned the presidency of Colombia in 1830. He was ill, weary. He basically gave away or lost his fortune.
A sad end for a liberator.
Very. He died of tuberculosis December 17, 1830, age just 47, in Santa Marta, Gran Colombia.
And even after his death, the story continues with his remains.
Right, there's a whole saga there.
Yeah.
Remains brought back to Caracas in 1842, moved again in 1876 to the National Pantheon.
And didn't Hugo Chavez have theories about his death?
He did. Chavez pushed the idea that Bolivar was poisoned by New Granada traders. There was even an exhumation in 2010.
Did they find anything?
The results were inconclusive. Couldn't confirm or deny poisoning. It just shows how potent his image and story still are, how they're still debated.
His legacy is just
Yeah.
huge and complicated.
Immense, yes. Yeah. National hero, cultural icon across Latin America.
Yeah.
Nations, currencies named after him. Bolivia, Venezuela's official name. The Bolivar, the Boliviano.
Statues, streets everywhere.
Absolutely. Memorialized worldwide, but as you said, complicated. There was criticism from early on.
About the war, his methods.
Conduct of the war, executing rivals like General Parr, betraying Miranda earlier on, his later authoritarian streak.
Yeah.
Those criticisms persist.
So it's not just hero worship. There's a cult of Bolivar, especially in Venezuela, but also ongoing debate.
Exactly. It's a polarized legacy.
So we've just taken this deep dive into Simón Bolívar's extraordinary life, full of paradox, ideals, actions, struggles that really reshaped a continent and still echo today.
He really was a man of contrasts, wasn't he? Wealthy background, championing common people, a visionary whose grand project crumbled, a liberator who became more authoritarian.
The achievements in winning independence are undeniable. Change the map forever.
Undeniable. But the complexities of his politics, his personal journey, are just as important to understand.
So, thinking about all this, what does it mean for us, for you listening today? What can we learn from his successes and his failures, trying to build unity?
Those challenges of nation-building, leadership in diverse regions, they're still incredibly relevant, aren't they?
Absolutely. His dream of a united Spanish America didn't happen. Not really. But the idea itself, it still inspires debate, action.
It does.
How do the echoes of El Libertador, his struggles, his wins, his disappointments, how do they play out in Latin America's political landscape even now? Something to think about.